Hey everyone, welcome to the Optimal Athlete episode 4. As usual, this content has the goal to provide as much value in the less amount of time. But just before we begin, I want to thank all the sponsors that make my career possible and this content possible for free. So here we go. Toyota Saint-Eustache, Maison Bonneville, Big Bang 360, Laser Sport, Perfect Sport, Pirelli Tires, Vision, FSA, Shimano, Plaisir Gastronomique, Rule 28, DT Swiss, Laboratoire Riva, and Felt. Thank you very much for making this possible. So without wasting any time, let's jump straight into it. So this week, we're going to start by the Belgian Waffle Ride Utah race report. I'm going to share with you how the race was won, power number, and a takeaway. Then we're going to go to the AR Weekly Energy Tip. I'm going to talk about my mobility session that I do every morning to avoid injuries. Then I'm going to suggest to you a book. This week it's a sports psychology book. Then I'm going to tell you how I stay aero in cold weather. And finally, we're going to have a little bonus, and I'm going to tell you which album I listened to the most on the bike this week. So let's start by the Belgian Waffle Ride Utah race report. So Belgian Waffle Ride Utah is one of the most rugged and technical course of the year. This year was very different because normally the race is in late July or start of August, and this year it was super early, so early April. That means that the temperature was completely different. Normally it's a very, very hot race, but this year at the start it was 0 degree, and they had to shorten the course, not because of the temperature, but because there was snow over 200 meters, and 2 parts of the course were going over 2,000 meters, so they had to remove those parts. As I said, this course is super rugged and super technical, so even a shorter race, a 166K race, was sure to be enough to make the selections happen. So I would like to break down the course into 3 parts just to make the race report a little bit more clear. So the first part is the start to the 10K single track. Then we have the 10K single track to the last climb, and then we have the last climb to the finish. So we started at 9 a.m. and the first 20K was really straightforward. We had a very strong tailwind, so nothing was happening. But then we turned left and it was a super strong crosswind, and you go through a little tunnel, and that really spread out the group a lot. And the lead car was taking pictures. So the first 10 guys had a very, very good draft. So the car was blocking the wind for them, and that really spread out the group like crazy. And I was not in a perfect position, and I had to make a super big effort. So I did a 5-minute at just under 500 watts. That's actually pretty high for me, especially at this altitude. After that big effort, I was able to rejoin the group, and the lead car just saw that it was making an error. So that gave the opportunity to a lot of people to come back, and that really slowed the pace because we kind of turned into a headwind. And from now on, it was like a super chill pace. And after like 10K of chill pace, I just timed an attack perfectly and went up the front solo. My goal with this was to enter the 30K single track first, and that's actually what I did. I got caught by the lead group just at the entrance of it, so it was perfect timing. So in the single track, it didn't take too long for me to get passed by Andrew L'Espérance, a fellow Canadian, and Andrew really had in mind to push the pace like crazy in the single track. And at the end of it, he was by himself solo, and we were a group of 10 following. After this, you have a very long gravel sector, and our group was not organized at all. And during some argument, Pete was able to attack with another rider, and they were able to bridge to Andrew. and behind we were still very disorganized, and the three guys now in front took a pretty substantial gap, and at the bottom of the last climb they had a gap of more than 2 minutes, so I knew it would be a strong ask to bring back Pete. So right at the start of the climb, I went to the front and just put a strong pace on. Only Julien Gagné and Toby were able to follow. Toby was a Mid-South winner 2 weeks ago. And at the top of the climb, we still had 2 minutes back from Pete, but there's still about 40 minutes to go in the race. So Julien and I were trading pole, but it was clear that Toby was not feeling good at all. At first, I was not sure if he was faking it, so I was pretty worried about him, so it was kind of messing up our group chemistry, but looking back on it, it was clear that I should have just taken more of the workload. But then Toby kind of had a second win, and we were able to catch Andrew and the other rider that was with him, and approximately 2K from the finish, I launched an attack from our group of now 5 riders in the hope of catching Pete, but it was too little too late, and at the end I crossed the line 40 seconds behind a very strong Pete and 40 seconds ahead of the remainder of the top 5. So in terms of number, keep in mind that's at 1600 meters, so it's in altitude. So intensity factor was 0.781, TSS were 299, and calorie burn were 4,500. That's a little bit lower than a normal 4.5-hour race, but those numbers can be explained because of the altitude. The fatigue was actually higher than those numbers can explain. So the number one takeaway of the race is more focus, more fun. So I kind of got into the habit of trying to make a gravel race a little bit more fun because they can be very long. So I would do that by chatting with other riders or looking at the scenery. But this week at BWR, I really focused my mind on what I needed to do in each moment, and actually it made it more enjoyable. So I guess that's the takeaway. The more focused you are, the more into the race you are, the more you give yourself an opportunity to be in the flow of the experience. To put myself in that present moment, I use one mantra that can be said in 2 ways. So it goes like this: fear no one, respect everyone, or fear nothing, respect everything. So I use both mantra depending on the situation. So now let's go to the AR Weekly Energy Tip. So this week we're gonna go over my 2 minutes mobility session. If you want to rewatch it in full, the link is in the blog, so you can go read the blog on my internet site at adamroberge.com. So I always do this stretching routine right when I wake up. I'll come back to my full morning routine in the following episode, but for now I just want to put an emphasis on this mobility session. So I do it outside, non-negotiable, especially in winter. I do it facing the sun, and with every stretch I do an exhale. So the exhale is timed with the deeper extension of the stretch. So for example, let's say I'm stretching like that, the exhale will be when I'm super deep into the stretch. So now let's go to the AR Weekly book suggestion. This week the book suggestion is Elite Mind by Dr. Stan Bickham. As usual, I've selected 3 quotes that were the most impactful for me from this book. So the first quote goes like this: if you're not intentional or conscious in your mental preparation, you will do it unintentionally or unconsciously. The second quote goes like this: be very aware of the fact that the search for fun will not make any of us great. Instead, what makes us great is the search for truth, and the truth is usually painful. And the third quote is: the people who are stressed and unable to recover are the ones who think about their work or their sport all the time. They worry, and in so doing, they deplete their energy and harm their performance. So now let's go to the piece of tech that enhanced my work this week. This week we're gonna talk about Rule 28 long sleeve Aero jersey and Aero bib tight. If you're looking at the video, you see the long sleeve Aero jersey here and the Aero bib tight is here. That's actually a new product from Rule 28 and I'm just in love with it. So I've raced with the Aero bib tight and the Aero long sleeve Aero jersey for all the race I've done so far in 2024. And in the past, it's always been a challenge to be Aero and stay warm. I feel like I always had to decide between the two because the warmer I would get, the less Aero I would get. But this kind of breaks the pain. I can have the best of both worlds. Finally, the album that I listened to the most this week on the bike is The Satanist by Behemoth. This album is what got me into metal. It's funny because the first time I heard Behemoth, it was one of my good friend, Alexandre Leblanc, that showed it to me, and I was like, I don't understand how people listen to this kind of music. And I don't know, it just clicked at one point. And if I need to get motivated or if I need to go through a series of interval while it's raining, it's just a perfect album. I don't know how to define this album. I would say it's black and death metal perfection. So that's pretty much all I have for today. As usual, if you have some insight that you can give me to improve my presentation, please tell me in the comment. And other than that, take care of yourself by making the most optimal choice in every moment and do the same to take care of the ones you love.